the cloud. So I just wanted to share that our presenter could not make it, unfortunately, today to talk about 5.0. So I'll serve as a probably awful proxy. I can give you some links and things, but I can share with you just some updates on 5.0. If you haven't seen this new webpage yet, I think it summarizes, let me find the chat here. It summarizes the features that are coming in 5.0. I just put it in the chat link there. And there's something in the docs too that talks about it. This goes into it. It's similar to what's in the docs, although it summarizes more of the features, linking to different pages that just kind of talk about all the different features that are coming. Hey, Patrick, how are you? I was just saying our presenter.
Right one.
Yeah, our presenter for doing the features today couldn't make it, so I'm serving as a proxy for sharing 5.0 info based on what I know. So anyone who knows who is working on things too, please feel free to chime in. So I just shared the 5.0 landing page in the chat window. That really does give you an overview of what's coming. And I just heard from Mick, PMC member, that so it sounds like beta 2 is most likely going to be available by Summit. And then it looks like GA will be sometime in February, and then there will be 5.1 GA in the June timeframe. So again, of course, this is open source. Everything needs to kind of go smoothly, but that's the general targets that people are looking at right now. And TCM and Accord, which we had hoped would be in 5.0, will be in 5.1 instead. Am I missing anything? I think I know like other people who have been working on things.
Yeah, I think today had some developer list stuff where it talked about some issues, and Scott was saying that it's got inspiring confidence that we keep on anecdotally finding issues, but hopefully,
yeah,
as we get people that are trying things out, we'll get some more feedback. And at DataStax, since I work at DataStax, we're looking at trying to do some more concerted testing. And so, yeah, so those things I think are because we're in a stabilization phase, right? So I hopefully we get more and more of this sort of thing is to get more people testing it out, so we don't just get lucky and find bugs.
Is there anything that anybody here could do to help with that? Or is there anything that would be useful?
My reply to the dev list just now.
Yeah. Like Scott asked specifically if there are any organizations that are trying it out. And if we have more awareness of people trying it out and the circumstances around that, hopefully that would give more confidence in it.
Awesome.
Yeah, my feeling is, and this has been the case with every release, and we keep forgetting this, is that how anybody touches an alpha because it's so YOLO. And
it's a waste of time.
Yeah, exactly. And the beta is like, even if it has flaws in it, there are known issues in betas, but even if it has a flaw, getting it out there is a signal to the user community that this is feature complete. This is frozen from feature wise. You shouldn't see any changes, but we want you to go try it out now. By the way, here's a couple of known issues. Like there's an SAI issue. And I think that for the user community, this is what we want to tell everyone. It's like, okay, when the beta ships, go try it out. And this is what 5.0 should look like. And the thing, we do some great testing in the project, no problem. I mean, that we have some amazing tools like Harry, like that we're talking about putting that in tree. Fabulous. But it would be a hubris to think that our testing tools find all the bugs. It takes a use case, and it's always the case where it's like, wow, I had no idea people were doing that.
Yeah. Well, it also helps if somebody's doing things at scale, with some data that they have, which is always a hard thing to do, and just testing stuff.
Oh, and well, in Lorena, last time we found in 4.1, we found out that it was actually the opposite. Someone doing it at a very small scale. Do you remember that was the Paxos thing? It's like when you do just a little bit of Paxos, it folded. And like everyone was like testing it with like these massive loads and just killing it. And like, oh yeah, it's running great. And then Marianne comes along and she's like, does like one and it goes, and everyone's like, oh, whoops. I guess we didn't test that. So again, it just takes a village to make these things solid.
Yeah. Awesome.
And that probably is a good thing to bring up on the dev list when we are asking for feedback on the release. Not that we have to do anything special or additional, but maybe just adding just a sentence about like, please note in your +1s, or if anybody is doing any level of testing, if you could include that a blurb about it. Mick is really good about that with his like, I tested this and this and this and this, in his latest email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good stuff. 5.0 is pretty solid, but it's not.
We don't have the big jump that we had from 2 to 3, because I think we had so many bugs from the main thing that Apple found, I think, was that the way that data was serialized in 2 was virtualized with some kind of like the 8099 stuff was virtualized in 3.x, and then that caused a bunch of bugs. And so I'm hoping that this will be just a much more solid release. But like you say, I mean, 4.1 had some hidden gems there.
Well, there's some big changes. There are some big changes. I think that's what everyone should know about. So if everyone is not aware, there's a 5.0, 5.1 duality going on here. ACID transactions and transactional cluster metadata, TCM, are not going to be part of the .0 release. The project has decided to move that to a .1 just because these are ginormous changes, like 88,000 lines of code. A little scary, and ChatGPT ain't going to help you on that one. So, and it's just, this is a really important release. We don't want to just like throw it out there. And plus it was going to hold up things. So it kind of decoupled it. So 5.0 will not have ACID and TCM in it. But it does have some pretty substantial changes. The SAI is probably the biggest because that changes the indexing scheme.
From a data side, like just the tree or the try.
I'm just talking about like the biggest changes that will affect everybody. Yeah, tries too. And then there are things like UCS, which, Lorena, I'm sorry, I should have given you a trigger warning. UCS is a really interesting, brand new, well, not brand new, but it's a new thing to the Cassandra project about how to do compaction. And turning that on your data is going to be interesting.
Well, and I was saying to a smaller subset, Branimir just released a version 2 of that. That's an interesting way of dealing with the triggering of compaction, but it if anybody has the time, and I'm not competing with anything important, you might want to come hear about it at the Cassandra Summit. Hopefully I'll do a good enough job of explaining it.
It'll be great. I mean, there's been a lot of our experience in testing it was we didn't even change the defaults and we got it to scale like crazy. So I'm really hopeful that it's just going to work for everybody. And then if you want it to work better, like for specific SLAs and specific circumstances like tombstones and stuff, that you can tune it. But I am super excited about it just being the default. Is it going to be the default?
No,
it won't be the default. STCS will still be the default.
Wow.
The tried and true.
Yeah, it's because of time series and things like that. You can make UCS behave as a time window, a TWCS strategy. Sort of, yeah. And so that's the reason it's not going to be the default. By the way, I also wanted to mention, if anybody is interested in playing around, I'm presuming that we'll try to push a beta, but something that's a little bit new is that a Docker container for Cassandra, at least the Alpha 2, 5.0 Alpha 2, was pushed to Docker Hub. And, for just like, I want to spin this thing up and try a few things. Personally, you can't beat a Docker image. So I was very excited to see that, so that I could just have a quick local
You have
instance of it to work.
do you have the Docker pull address?
Yeah,
repo?
sure. I could put it in here. I can put the Docker Hub here in the chat, and
yeah, the image ID, I guess is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and I tend to write a Docker compose and a little start script to get these things going, and I did that. I guess I should figure out how to update that and give everybody a link to that too, if anybody cares.
No, that's very helpful. And see, like with beta, that's going to even be more helpful, because then this will just invite people. That's really cool. So yeah, I think we can get more people looking this way.
Docker image, yeah. I am kind of curious about the default compaction though, because I don't really see a big reason, unless people are worried about stability, why UCS shouldn't be the default in 5.0.
There be dragons in there. Thou shalt never make the new thing the default. Come on, you know this.
I mean, it's been in production for at least 3 years.
Not in this code base.
Yeah, not in this code base. So I think that's,
Your optimism is wonderful, Jeremy, but I've been burned so many times. I'm flightless at this point. I have no tail feathers left. Yeah, it's just a new code base. It's been running in Astra and DSE. Good. That should give us plenty of hope that it'll just be fine over, but we can't turn that thing into the default. We did that with, what was it, materialized views?
Well, that's not really the default. It was enabled. And compaction, if you upgrade to it, it won't override a current compaction scheme for existing tables. It's only for new tables. But you're right. I get that if people are starting out with it, but at the same time, I just see how bad size-tiered compaction is in so many ways with your data.
It's easy to fix, but someone should make the choice. I think that's the key.
Yeah, I think maybe with 5.1 or the 5.1++, it'll be a good default. And what I'm hoping is that it will be a clamor from the community to say, I'm tired of changing everything to unified compaction. I think that's what the hope will be, is people saying, I'm tired of changing this to unified compaction. Let's just make it the default, because that's really what you want to pull instead of a push.
Probably a 6.0 topic, but yeah. I think that's because that's a substantial change that you can't back out of. But yeah, I'm hopeful. And yeah, so everyone listening to this should definitely turn it on. You'll be super happy. And come to Cassandra Summit and watch Lorena talk about it.
There are some really, I mean, it shards compaction. It makes the files smaller. It makes it easier for zero copy streaming to work, because the files are smaller and segregated into their own little
well,
groups.
there's little concern about switching, because you can make it basically mimic or simulate the compaction strategies you have now. And you can do it in flight. So, you can switch UCS on. You can, if you have STCS or LCS running, you can just set the values of the parameters so that you're still using those same exact, compaction strategies, so to speak, but it will run better.
Yeah, and the sharding makes it so that even if it is identical, you could scale it a lot better. And then the overhead is only 20%, and then it won't kill your disk. It won't just shut down the server like size tier does by default. It'll say, oh, I'm going to skip that compaction if you get to that danger zone. So anyway, so many things. I'm excited about it, but yeah, you're right. We don't want to make the new thing the default.
Yeah, but it is, I personally, I'm basically, I talked to Branimir, but I said, I'm making the recommendation that no matter what compaction strategy you're using, you should probably switch to UCS. That's the top recommendation in the docs that I'm writing about it.
So. Right. I mean, the one caveat to that is when I've talked to him about it, it's the time window compaction strategy. If you have a really good use case for that, then it's hard to beat.
Yeah, but you can tune it to do that. You can set the parameters to pretty much to somewhat simulate a time window. W equals 20.
Morton, I saw your comment, and yeah, absolutely, this meeting's for everybody, so it's not just contributors. I do want to mention, so it sounds like you're using 3.11, and I think so 3.11 will not be supported anymore once 5.0 comes out. Do I have that right?
Right. Actually, that's a great point. Thanks.
That's a really good thing.
Yeah. So Morton, I think this is a good time for you to consider at least going to 4.1. You don't have to make the jump to 5, but first of all, 4.1 is amazing and stable, and you'll be so much happier using it. But
Okay.
3.11 won't be supported anymore.
Is it okay to tell people about ZDM or not? It works. It works with open source.
What were you saying, Martin?
Oh, sorry.
No. We are considering upgrading, but we have many. We have like 50 or 60 clusters, all of 5-node clusters. So it takes a little while, even though it's scripted with Ansible.
Yeah. Well, you can do it in place. There's plenty of folks out there doing it. It shouldn't involve any downtime. So, no. But you're right. You got to babysit it. You got to watch it.
Yeah. We have we have some tooling too that allows you to operate 2 separate clusters. I'll be talking about it with somebody else at the summit. Is a tool. What we found is that upgrading in place works fine because it's a compatible release and that sort of thing. Some of the people that I work with, they're more risk averse, and so they operate one cluster and then they operate the other cluster, and they don't want to even do like add a data center sort of thing. And so they're doing over the course of like dozens of clusters, they're going to use the zero downtime migration proxy because they're going to go from an on-prem to a cloud in their case. But it works with what it is it basically says it's a proxy that acts like a Cassandra cluster, and then it sends both writes to both clusters, and then it reads from the cluster that you designate. So there's the origin and the target cluster, and you basically say, okay, well, keep these 2 clusters in sync. That way, if you want to go from one to the other cluster in a decoupled fashion and say, you don't want to say, because the one challenge that I hope we get rid of, because there's some changes in 5.0 to handle this, is to say, don't write out the data in the new format until you've explicitly said to write out the data in the new format. Because right now, people that operate Cassandra clusters, if you change the data format, if you upgrade in place and something goes wrong, it's really hard or tricky to go back because you've already started writing in the new format. And the old version doesn't speak the new format. 5.0 adds something that makes it so that it won't speak the new format, or won't write in the new format unless you explicitly say to do that. But to get around that, this thing of decoupling the 2 clusters and that sort of thing makes it so that you can do a rollback if you need to much more easily. Anyway, so just a long story there, but yeah, so but 4.1 shouldn't be that big of a jump. Except for, did the data format change? I can't remember. Is there a new data format like on disk upgrade from 3.11? I think so.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's why you have to.
But there's no big differences. I mean, we've upgraded only once from 3.11.4 to 3.11.14. But whether you're doing that or going to 4 or to 5, the process is the same, right?
Yes, exactly.
Well, you have to do the upgrade SS tables, but as soon as you start upgrading in place, whenever you do a compaction or whenever you do a flush to disk, it writes in the new format.
You don't have to do an upgrade SS tables. Let's be clear.
You don't have to, but any new data that's written gets written in the new
That's the thing
format.
that I think that's a pretty common myth that people feel is like they have to run update SS tables. No, you do not. You can upgrade it if you're trying to minimize the amount of busy work. Don't. compaction will take care of it. Yeah.
Okay. But that could take time.
It's non-deterministic. Yeah, you just don't know how long it's going to take.
Yeah, it's going to rewrite the data. You're right, but if you do want to do rollback, that's something you need to keep in mind, though, is that as soon as you start running on the new version, it's going to, anytime it writes out data, it's going to write out in the new version.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it really depends on your kind of workload. For example, we have a workload where we write data and it never gets updated and just sits there for years. And there we have to run and upgrade SS tables because at some points the SS tables grow so big. So, for example, we have sometimes SS tables with 300 gigabytes or something like that, and they never get compacted away again because they are just too big, basically. And then, of course, you have to do.
You're not going to get 4 of those types of files, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you doing is this time series compaction?
Yeah, it's time series. Yeah. It's not using the window compaction strategy. We are just using regular size tiered because, as I said, we usually don't delete data. Sometimes we do, but it's rare for us to delete any data. Usually we just keep it forever, basically. So we have been running it now for 10 years, and we have kept the last 10 years. And we are planning to continue doing that. And yeah, then this is really the best strategy, and it works actually quite nice. I mean, we really put a lot of data on a single node. We have like, I think at the moment, 3.5 terabyte per node with spinning disks, and it works perfectly. Yeah. So I think this really shows how well Cassandra is really suited at different workloads, right? And that's what I really love about it.
We have a talk at the Cassandra Summit of somebody running 70 terabytes per node.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Interested in
Aaron
that.
found that guy. Yeah. Yeah, it's doable. And it is, you're right, it's dependent. It's always it depends. But I mean, one of the things with UCS, one of the goals with UCS is higher node density.
Yeah, we tested it internally up to about 40 terabytes per server and without any problems. You just have to have more CPU cores. And it often, like with anything, it depends on your write throughput too, because the danger is compaction getting behind. And so if you don't have a lot of write throughput, but you keep it forever, then that's not a big deal.
So the rule of thumb of like 1.5 to 2 terabyte per node, I mean, that was what we were told in the beginning, which is like 4 years ago, maybe. That's not true anymore, or
I think that if you're being pressed, because I was on some of the certification testing for the density of things, is that if you're pressed to give one number, that's really hard to give. And so I think that that's giving a conservative number given most circumstances and given compaction strategies. And then the hardware, because some people run with NVMe and some people run with EBS or vSAN and that sort of thing. And so it really depends on what your write throughput is, as well as what your hardware is and SLAs.
A little bit of work, you can do way more.
Yeah.
If you're focused on it. Sebastian's a good example. Sebastian pays attention to his data, understands what the workload looks like, puts way more on there. Good job. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like that very low number is that it's the floor, but much higher is possible just based on a little bit of work. But that's changing. UCS is going to make that little bit of work even less.
Yeah. So I don't want to hijack any agenda here. So But I'm curious actually about because with the size tier that we are also using, what I seem to see is that, I mean, the tombstones, they only go away, right, with compactions.
Right.
Yeah, so I think it often happens, or actually the opposite. It doesn't happen often that our tables are compacted because, why do you have this threshold? Is it minimum 4 tables by default, which must have like similar size, plus minus, I don't know, 50%, something like that. So if that is not
that'll
met,
change a bit. Yeah.
So there is one interesting feature of UCS that we didn't actually mention here, and that is that you can actually set the compaction strategy per level. Right. So what you're talking about right now can actually you can see improvement because, you can set lower levels to one compaction strategy and higher levels to a different compaction strategy and not, get some of the problems that you have around compaction not occurring right now because things hit a point where they don't do anything. So that's probably worth looking into.
That would be
the balance.
Because
the balance is that essentially what UCS does is says, okay, do you want to favor read amplification or write amplification? And you could determine that per level. So you could have kind of like with leveled compaction, it's kind of a special case of that. You have size tiered compaction in level 0, potentially. And then as you go up the levels, it's a different, like you do the levels and stuff like that. Whereas with UCS, at every level, you can make a determination of like, what's your balance between read and write amplification.
Yeah, I don't know if our scenario is very special, but it's different, at least in the sense that we have kind of our own in-memory solution. So we have systems starting up. We have like around 15 key spaces. We are mimicking a bit our old Oracle schemas. I know it's not the best practice, but that's how it is right now. So when systems are starting up, we're basically doing heavy reads, right? Because we're reading up all data. So if we have like a maintenance window, all systems are stopped, all applications, then the read up is really heavy. But once it's read up and systems are running, the data is fed out of in memory on the application side. And then it's more like the write scenario. So I guess the UCS would probably be a good fit.
Worth trying. You can go test the alpha right now. It's actually pretty good. You have a Docker image to play with. But it's worth trying because you're using a 7-year-old version of Cassandra.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of advances between there and there. You might be happy.
Yeah.
There might be some surprises in there. Well, there's probably some other things that would help as well, just in the way that Bootstrap works, because that's actually one of the bigger reasons to not hyperload your nodes. Like having really, really fat nodes isn't about the performance of the node. Sometimes it's about the recovery time, because it just takes a lot of time for data to move across the wire. And so
even with zero copy streaming, which is great, it's not free. Even with rsync, if you have 2 terabytes versus 4 terabytes, it takes twice as long. And so mean time to recovery is still going to be an issue depending on your use case, but it is significantly faster. But like Patrick said, there's so many changes that are better, for the better. That and one thing that's I'm going to be interested to see is, since Ekaterina did so much hard work to get Java 17 support into Cassandra 5, is ZGC is GA in the LTS of the LTS Java 17, and so I'm kind of interested to see what people see with just running ZGC with Cassandra 5 as well. Something outside the project, obviously, but the ability to do that now.
And that's the default?
Well, I mean, it's whatever you choose to run under the covers as your Java version. Okay. It's compatible with both 11 and 17, but if you run 17, then you have to opt in to running ZGC, which I think I'm just interested to see what people find with that from a practical standpoint.
Sorry to interject. This is a good conversation. I know we're at time though. I just want to make sure, because I saw someone drop off, but this was great. We got to have a good conversation about 5.0 and some of the features. So thank you for your questions. If anybody else has questions about 5.0, you could just continue to reach out to us on the ASF Slack or the meetup or wherever. And we're happy to answer your questions about it. But really thank you, folks who on the maintainer side who helped answer questions about 5.0, since our presenter wasn't here. This was really great. Just a reminder, this Thursday we have our virtual meetup with a case study about Cassandra. It's the Monday.com folks. They're talking about how they built a database from scratch with Cassandra. And then, of course, Cassandra Summit is very soon, in a couple weeks. So I hope to see many of you there. We're excited too. So much awesome content. So hope to see folks there. Anyway, thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it. And hope to see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.